Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I guess it's not morning. I've been recording all my videos in the morning recently, but this was some breaking news, so I had to make this in the afternoon. But the Philadelphia 76ers have traded Al Horford, the 34th pick, and a lightly protected 2025 first-round pick in exchange for Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson. Before we start talking about this deal more, though, I want to remind you to like and subscribe. Been enjoying all the support lately, and I hope to see that continue. Without further ado, let's get into the topic of today's video. Actually, I just lied. We're not going to get into the topic of today's video because first, I want to lightly touch on the trade that went down between the New York Knicks and the Utah Jazz. This morning, Knicks move up from 27 to 23 in exchange for, obviously, that 27th pick as well as the 38th pick. I like this move a lot for the Jazz because I think that the type of player you're getting at 23 and 27 is pretty much identical, and there's a chance that they could get the guy that would have been first on their board at 23 at 27, so really not a whole lot of risk there at all. And they also add on 38, which is another spot where I think that you can add a potential rotational piece, so I think that this is a great move for the Jazz. For the Knicks, I have to assume that they were looking to leap above the Thunder. I think that the Thunder are likely to take an athletic wing, and if the Knicks take a point guard with their first round pick, then I think the wing would likely be a position that they would look to address with their second first round pick. And hopping over the Thunder gives them a chance to get whatever guy from the group of Robert Woodard, Elijah Hughes, Josh Green that they like the most, unless one of those three guys goes before 23, which is certainly possible in the case of Green, but I still view as unlikely. Now, let's talk about the Sixers and the Thunder. Obviously, pretty big move for the Sixers, getting off the Al Horford contract and adding a player that can really help you in Danny Green. I don't love giving up that 2025 first-round pick. Even if it has light protections on it, you don't know what your team's going to look like then. And in the Sixers case, doing it to just get off a contract is not super appealing to me, but you can't deny that Danny Green is a good fit on this roster. He's just the type of guy they needed to surround Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid with. He can space the floor for them and really doesn't need to have the ball in his hands too much. I would have liked for them to have gotten a guy who could create a bit more. Drew Holiday and Chris Paul were both interesting options for this team, but obviously those didn't happen. And Danny Green, can do some stuff as a shooter, but the playmaking aspect and really shot creation overall outside of knocking down open threes just really isn't there with Green. Ferguson is a player that I have a lot of interest in. I think that although we haven't seen it on the offensive end yet, he has a lot of he's a great defensive player. I'll start by saying that. He's terrific on the perimeter, very laterally quick, can force steals, and is a guy that I really can trust guarding a high-quality player on an opposing team. Where he has to improve is the jump shot. If he can do that, he's your prototypical 3-and-D wing, and if he can create some ability off the bounce as a shot creator or a playmaker, that's an even bigger improvement. But if you can figure out the three-point shooting, you've got a really high-quality 3-and-D wing guy on your hands because I think that he's a terrific defensive player, and I think that that was an underrated get for the Sixers. The 34th pick is a bit of a blow since, once again, I think that that range of picks can yield a rotation-type player, and I would have liked to see the Sixers try to get a guy that could maybe help them this upcoming season. I think Cassius Winston would have been there at 34 most likely, and he, in my opinion, will be ready to come in and help out an NBA team almost immediately as a backup point guard who can shoot the ball and be a good shot creator for teammates as well. But that opportunity is actually, I think they have like the 36th pick too. So, I actually am kind of a fan for this trade for the Sixers, and I think that only giving up one first-round pick to get off of Al Horford while also bringing in a valuable guy in Danny Green makes this a certainly viable move. But the 2025 first-round pick makes me super squeamish, especially since the contracts that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid will be up by then, I believe. We'll see what happens, but that makes me pretty nervous, and I'm going to give the Sixers a B+, because that makes me nervous, but I do think that getting off of Horford and bringing in Green is a pretty good deal for them overall, and I think that Terrence Ferguson hikes it up from a B to a B+, because I am a pretty big believer in him comparative to many. Now let's talk about it from the Thunder's point, the Thunder, hard D, their point of view. They exchange Danny Green, who's a guy they just acquired in the Dennis Schroeder trade for Al Horford, while also giving up Terrence Ferguson. And they bring in more draft assets, just what this team needed, right? Their cabins weren't full enough with draft assets. They had to get two more. So, once again, very interesting deal. They now have 34, 28, and 25, and I think that there's a pretty good chance that they package two or all three of those picks to move up in this draft and target a player like Alexei Pokusevsky or Jaden McDaniels that has a lot of potential. I think it's unlikely that either of those two guys falls to 25, so if they want to get them, they're likely going to have to move up. Both of those guys have a chance to really hit and become futures, maybe all-star level players. So if you're able to hop up and get them, I think that it would certainly be worth giving up an extra pick, and maybe he is your future second best player and playing well alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I think that that's certainly a move that they're looking at. Pokusevsky has been a name that has been in Thunder rumors a lot recently. And so if that is a home run swing that they can make, I would certainly consider it if you're the Thunder, especially because bringing in young players isn't an issue. You've got so many first-round picks in the future, and you still have some young talents on this roster with guys like Ty Jerome, Jalen LeCue, Hamidou Diallo, Deonte Burton, Isaiah Roby. So if you want second-round pick level players, you've got them if you're the Thunder. So packaging an extra pick in order to move up and take one of those guys would be a solid idea for me. Bringing in Horford is also interesting. They already have Steven Adams on the roster, but Adams is a large expiring deal for a quality player. I do think that there's still a chance that they move on from him if they can find the right trade partner. So for that reason, there's a chance that Horford's their starting center next year. They're able to take in some value for giving up Danny Green and bringing in Al Horford, but I kind of would have thought they would have gotten more. The 34th pick is valuable because you can probably get a rotational player for it, and that 2025 pick could be pretty juicy depending on what Philadelphia looks like then. But I also think that Al Horford's contract is pretty bad, and maybe you could have gotten another asset for it. But it's not as bad as Tobias Harris's, and I think that that's a big deal. It has 3 years left on it, this year, next year, and the year after that. And that third year is a non-guaranteed contract for almost all of it. I think only $4 million is guaranteed to Al for that season. So there's a chance that you can cut him, and even that season you could probably trade him as a large expiring contract. I don't really think that Al Horford is going to be much of a player at that point, but expiring contracts are still valuable, and maybe a team would want to bring that in order to clear up some cap space following that particular season, depending on what the free agency market looks like at that point. I think that, once again, I talked about it with the 76ers, but I think that giving up Terrence Ferguson was a bit bigger of a hit than the Thunder would like to admit. I would have rather had Ferguson than the 34th pick, probably, but I also think that they probably had to give him up for cap purposes, as Al Horford's contract is about $15 million more expensive than Danny Green's, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, maybe they had to give him up, but still, that's definitely a bit of a loss. However, bringing in that 2025 pick, that probably is going to have some value, and bringing in another asset that you can move tonight on draft night in order to move up in the draft. Maybe when you guys are seeing this video, we've already found out that the Thunder did move up in the draft, as a plate just fell on top of me upstairs. But no news on that yet, and I think that it is certainly a potential move that the Thunder could be looking to make. I think I've covered everything with this trade. This was a bit of a shorter video than usual, but this also isn't as chaotic of a move as usual. It's not as impactful on the NBA as a whole as the usual move is, although I do think that Danny Green was a solid get for the Sixers, and I do have to give my grade for the Thunder. I would say that they probably get the same grade as the Sixers, a solid B+ for getting that 2025 first, and also getting that second-round pick. I think that maybe they could have gotten a little more, but the 2025 pick could be super valuable, and for that reason, I think they did pretty good job in this trade, and so both teams get a B+ from me. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We're cranking out all tons of draft coverage in the coming days, as well as all tons of free agency coverage as well. So if you like basketball, this is the place for you. Leave a comment on who you think won this trade. Was it the Thunder? Was it the Sixers? I can see both sides, so let me know who you think won. That's it for me, and ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.